All right, let's move on to another big SEC matchup. Two teams in dire need of a win. Looking at Ole Miss at home at the Pavilion against Kentucky. The Rebels currently a 3.5 point favorite, juiced in Kentucky's direction with a total of 155.5. I already bet this one, Justin, on open. I took Ole Miss on the money line minus 140, so we have seen a little bit of movement already on the Rebels. But digging into some of my cliff notes here, like I hit on from the get-go, Ole Miss missed 11 free throws against Auburn, shooting a smidge below 69%. So you would expect because they're around a 72-73% shooting team from the charity stripe, if you see them get back to that mean, that average, much likelier chance they cover or just win the game outright at home against Kentucky. Injury-wise, big part of my handicap. Reading between the tea leaves, very unlikely Lamont Butler plays for Kentucky. Kentucky's net rating at both ends of the floor dips significantly with him off the court, and we saw that against Arkansas. He really is their trigger man defensively, a really good on-ball defender going back to his days at San Diego State. Also, Andrew Carr dealing with a back injury that has really limited his effectiveness at both ends of the floor. And then another big part of this for me, Kentucky's offense runs they probably rank in the 95th percentile in terms of when one of the ESPN commentators who I'm blanking on says zoom action per game. I think it's Dykes. He says it about 20, 30 times per game. And rightfully so, because Kentucky runs a ton of zoom action with those dribble handoffs. Ole Miss not only ranks in the 7th percentile when you look at handoff action allowed per game, so how often their opponents are actually truly running those sets efficiently and or just getting the handoff off. And then they rank in the 64th percentile when it comes to defensive efficiency on dribble handoffs. That is because Ole Miss switches aggressively and then some. That's the whole part of Chris Beard's no middle defense. A, not allowing dribble penetration, and B, not letting or just switching hyper aggressively where opponents can't necessarily get those clean looks off of ball screen dribble handoffs. Zoom action is what Jimmy Dykes calls it. So I really like this matchup from Ole Miss's perspective. Maybe you get some shooting regression from Malik Dia in this one, who struggled against Auburn's physicality. Give me Ole Miss on the money line here. I think this is a big bounce back spot for the Rebels after losing 4 of their last 5. Yes, you could say Kentucky needs this one too, but home spot, I make this line closer to Ole Miss minus 5.5.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm not betting this one. I'm almost positive. I don't think I wrote it down when I listed everything out. But you're right. I mean, you're right. There's no doubt about it. The no middle, the pick and roll ball screen, the way they play off of it, it looks good. They've done a good job, and they, it creates a low rate of getting to the rim. They don't see a lot of pick and roll because of it, and I do think that it leads to them having a pretty decent shot selection against and creating turnovers on defense. It's definitely been successful in that, second most in the conference so far. But no, I think what it does do, Eli, is it creates looks from deep, right? It allows, I think, per shot quality, a lot of looks from 324th fewest, or like 42nd most. 44.4% of shots against Mississippi have been from deep, and the defense against them is not great. So that's where I think that game would be won for Kentucky. If you're going to lose your bet, it's going to be because they're getting good looks from 3 and they're hitting them. The expected ability for this team from deep is very good. Expected to be shooting 40% from behind the arc this season. They are shooting about 37. So if you can believe it, expected to be doing even better. Shot quality loves their offense. They don't really force a lot of turnovers. Like you said, a lot of that zoom action. They move fast. Efficient shooters, third most efficient per SQ, and the passing's good. So if they have one of these games where they can, hit everything and get good looks, it should be a spot where I think you might lose. I'm not backing it. I'm not telling you shouldn't do it. But I think there's, it's a fair line. It's a sharp line. I'm probably not touching on this one too much, if at all. Good luck.
Well, But the point about injuries, I think, and to your point, Kentucky can get those open looks. We've seen it over and over again with Mark Pope. Although he did have his struggles in the second half, I will say that was probably the first time, and I was shocked to see him get outcoached by John Calipari of all coaches to outcoach you, and we know how much Cal loved that. But at the same time, no Butler and a hampered Carr, and Kentucky's on all of a sudden on a short rotation.
Too. I mean, they shot 52% on three, their best shooting of the year, and Kentucky missed 9 free throws, their worst of the season. So you give them an extra 4 free throws,
so they win the game, but they don't cover.
Sure, right, but that's likely more important for most people that aren't, I know it's a betting show, but you want to talk about the way the basketball is played, which again is what you want to talk about when you're deriving your bets, more so than how a betting result went. I mean, sometimes people tell me, but they didn't cover. And I'm like, oh yeah, right, because them covering is what the models care about, not how many points they allowed or let up. The market might care, but we're talking about how the basketball goes. You want to talk about how many shots they took, how many times the ball went through the hoop, how many times they missed, how good of a shot, not what did the number land on. In my
totally fair. The point that I want to bring up about Lamont Butler, if you want to talk about from a basketball sense,
yes, good.
Opponents have a +9 net rating offensively with Butler off the court against Kentucky. So Ole Miss is due for some shooting regression. We saw it against Auburn. Then again, Auburn's length played a role there. Kentucky's defense, you're not facing Auburn. Kentucky is very, very prone to giving up big performances offensively. Arkansas played right into that over the weekend, even though they hadn't shot well in SEC play. Kentucky, very, very vulnerable at that end of the court. So, long story short, I think this is a really good spot to back Ole Miss at home. You have to win this game if you're Ole Miss. I expect them to, especially with the injuries in mind for Kentucky.
Let's get it. I wish you luck. I think it's going to be a good game either way.
All right. Let's keep it moving here. Either way, good discussion back and forth here on the first couple games. Neither of us want to agree every single time because that just makes for a better show, the discourse back and forth. If you agree on everything, well, more than likely you're not going to win everything regardless.